Imagine this, a place where time seems to lose its grip, a remote, fog-laden corner of Appalachia, a place so hidden even the light struggles to break through the dense trees. Here, in a small, forgotten house, lives a woman named Loraine Whittaker. But what if I told you that Loraine's story isn't just one of isolation or poverty? What if her life, her silence, holds secrets that could unravel everything we think we know about human nature, about society? The camera doesn't just capture her stillness, it reveals a terrifying truth. She's not just a forgotten face in the crowd. She's a living, breathing symbol of something darker, something we weren't meant to see. And yet, for years, she has watched as the world stares at her without a single word, without a single protest. She doesn't speak. She doesn't move. But her silence? That's where the danger lies. Loraine Whittaker might just be the most inbred woman in America. Her family's bloodline, stretched thin over generations, echoes with the haunting consequences of incest. But what does that really mean? What lies beneath the label? Let me show you the twisted history behind her silence. Lorraine's story didn't start with her. No. It began generations ago when two brothers, John and Henry Whittaker, shared not just a name, but a bloodline so tangled it would eventually become a curse. Their children, cousins but closer to siblings, married. Then they did it again. And again. Generation after generation, they married within their own bloodline, tightening the web until it was no longer just a family, but a genetic trap. This is the legacy Loraine was born into. And let me make this clear. This was no accident. This was deliberate, forced by poverty, by isolation, by a brutal geography that kept the Whittakers from the outside world, from any hope of escape. They were trapped in a cycle, and Loraine, the product of this dark bloodline, is a living testament to its horrifying effects. The scientific world calls it elevated homozygosity, a fancy term for inbreeding. What that means is simple. The more generations they stay isolated, the more recessive traits they pass down. The result? Genetic deformities, neurological delays, mental impairments. Lorraine's body, a vessel of this twisted inheritance, is marked by this reality. But that's not the full story. Because what science doesn't tell you is that Loraine, though shaped by these genetic chains, remains something more. Her existence is a ghost in the machine. She is a part of this story, but the story itself, it is far darker than anyone dares admit. But here's where the tale shifts. In the heart of her family's dysfunction, Loraine remains a puzzle, silent, still, but never truly invisible. Her presence is a force unto itself. Think about it for a moment. A woman, alone, sitting in a chair, day after day, staring out the window as the world passes her by. She doesn't need to say a word. The room understands her without speech. Her body tells the story, a quiet language of gestures, of sounds, small grunts, the occasional hum, a tilt of the head. It's not much, but it's enough. People talk about the Whittakers as if they are strange, as if they are animals. But there's a deep, disturbing truth hidden in that silence. What if this silence isn't a symptom of weakness, but an act of power? What if, by not participating in the world's cruel game of judgment, Loraine has achieved a form of resistance that few of us could ever comprehend? Here's the thing. Silence is its own language. And in a world that thrives on noise, Lorraine's quiet rebellion has become her greatest weapon. Her life, reduced by many to a tragic spectacle, holds a mirror up to the dark forces that shape us all. and she doesn't even have to speak. In 2020, the world started to see Loraine, not as a person, but as a spectacle. Viral videos began to spread. Images of Loraine, still and unmoving, flickering across screens. Uninvited, yet somehow unshakable. Millions of eyes on her. Millions of opinions formed about her. But here's the dark irony. Her silence, her stillness, became a kind of spectacle, a circus for those who wanted to look but never understand. They called it poverty porn or exploitation. Some said it was about helping the Whittakers, showing their lives as they really are, raw and unfiltered. Others saw it for what it was, a chance to stare at the unknown, to mock, to dehumanize. But here's the question no one's asking. Why are we so captivated by their suffering? Why do we feel the need to stare at the weak, the broken, the different? Could it be that deep down we fear what Loraine represents? Perhaps it's because her family is a living, breathing metaphor for something darker in our society, a system of control, of isolation, of genetic manipulation, and most terrifying of all, of silence. And as the camera captures her, it's not just Loraine who's being watched, it's us. To understand the true weight of Loraine's existence, we have to go deeper into the dark history of her family. For generations, the Whittakers were isolated, not just geographically, but socially, economically, and genetically. They were part of a system that deliberately kept them inbred, isolated, and ignorant. Why? Because isolation breeds control. If you can keep a population confined, restricted in both their bloodlines and their minds, you create a perfect system of obedience. It's not just genetics at play, it's psychology, it's manipulation. The Whittakers didn't just inherit genetic deformities, they inherited a psychological prison. The outside world labeled them as different, strange, and dangerous, and they were made to believe this about themselves. They were cut off from the rest of society, denied access to education, health, or any form of progress. They became the perfect subjects of a hidden experiment in isolation. And Loraine? She is the living embodiment of that experiment. But here's the most disturbing part of all this. The more we learn about Loraine, the more we realize something crucial. The Whittaker family's existence doesn't just reveal their own tragedy, it reveals the deeper, hidden systems of control that we've all been living under. The Whittakers have become the modern-day version of a forgotten underclass, a people whose poverty and genetics have been weaponized by forces we will never see. The quiet horror of Loraine's life is not that she's inbred, but that she represents a system designed to erase people like her, to make them invisible, unworthy, disposable. But the more they're hidden away, the more they grow in power. Loraine's silence is not a flaw, it's a choice. She has seen more than most of us could ever imagine, and she knows something we refuse to confront. The world doesn't care about the Whittakers. It cares about controlling them, keeping them small, keeping them silent. And in this silence, they have become something more dangerous than anyone realized.